Welcome to today's news that's sending shockwaves across South Asia. On July 19th, 2025, China announced the start of construction on a massive mega dam project on the Yarlung Tsangpo River in Tibet. This isn't just a dam, folks, it's a 1.2 trillion yuan colossus, one of the most ambitious and expensive infrastructure projects in China's history. It's being pitched as a clean energy juggernaut, a lifeline for Tibet's development, and a spark to jumpstart China's slowing economy. But, make no mistake, this project is far more than steel and concrete. It's a geopolitical chess move, an environmental lightning rod, and a cultural turning point that could reshape the future of an entire region. So, let's unpack this and explore why this river, this dam, and these tensions matter to millions. The Yarlung Tsangpo, which transforms into the Brahmaputra as it flows into India and Bangladesh, is no ordinary river. It's a lifeline for communities across 4 nations: China, India, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. This isn't just water flowing downhill. It's a complex tapestry of power, politics, and fragile ecosystems. Today, we'll dive into the details of this megadam, explore its ripple effects downstream, and ask whether it's a harbinger of conflict or an unexpected chance for cooperation. Grab a seat, because this is a story that demands our attention. Let's start with the dam itself. Officially named the Yarlung Tsangpo Downstream Hydropower Engineering Project, this beast involves 5 cascade power stations, with tunnels carved through mountains to straighten river bends for maximum power output. China calls it a run-of-the-river project, meaning no giant reservoir hoarding water, and they're adamant it won't harm downstream neighbors. They're framing it as a clean energy king bomb, a cornerstone of their 2030 carbon peak and long-term carbon neutrality goals. It's also about energy security, cutting reliance on fossil fuels and pouring massive infrastructure investment into Tibet. Premier Li himself is championing this as a game changer for China's economy, and it's hard to overstate the scale. At 1.2 trillion yuan, this is one of the priciest projects China has ever tackled. But here's where the story gets thorny. The Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge, where this dam is rising, is no ordinary place. Picture this. The river plunges 2,000 meters over just 50 kilometers in a dramatic, ecologically fragile national nature reserve. This gorge is one of China's biodiversity hotspots, teeming with unique species found nowhere else. Chinese environmentalists, alongside global critics, are sounding alarms about irreversible ecosystem damage. And it's not just nature at risk. Local Tibetan communities face displacement, with homes, grazing lands, and sacred sites potentially submerged. Tibet itself is a powerhouse, holding 30% of China's hydropower potential, not to mention vast mining operations for lithium, copper, gold, and rare earths. Add in talk of grand water diversion plans like rerouting Tibetan rivers to China's arid north, and you see a region under immense pressure. For Tibetans, the stakes are personal forced relocations, lost livelihoods, and fears of cultural erosion are all too real. Now, let's follow the river downstream, because the impacts don't stop at China's borders. In India, the Yarlung Tsangpo becomes the Brahmaputra, a vital artery for the northeast, especially Arunachal Pradesh, a region long disputed with China. That territorial shadow looms large, making India deeply wary of China's dam. New Delhi fears disruptions to water flow, ecosystems, and agriculture, despite China's assurances. India's not sitting idle, either. They're planning up to 150 dams of their own in Arunachal Pradesh, a move that feels like planting their own geopolitical flag. For Bangladesh, the Brahmaputra is equally critical, supporting millions of livelihoods. Yet, they're frustrated by India's reluctance to share dry, season data or finalize treaties like one for the Teesta River, a key Brahmaputra tributary. India's proposed river linking project, which could divert up to 30% of the Brahmaputra's flow, is a major concern for Dhaka. Even Bhutan, often seen as India's close ally, has stakes in this river, with its massive hydropower potential tied to Indian-funded projects. So, are we staring down a water war? It's a question that looms large, but the answer might surprise you. Despite the tensions, the actual risk of conflict over water scarcity is low. Why? It's all in the hydrology. China contributes only about 7–15% of the Brahmaputra's cross-border flow. Most of the river's volume comes from rainfall downstream in places like India, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. Mawsynram in India, for instance, gets a staggering 433 inches of rain a year, one of the wettest spots on Earth. China can't just turn off the tap. The river's flow is too dependent on downstream rains. Plus, the Brahmaputra's massive volume doesn't neatly solve India's water security challenges, which are more about managing floods than fighting over scarcity. So, if it's not about water volume, what's driving the tension? It's about control. Dams are strategic tools, ways to assert territorial claims, signal presence, and flex geopolitical muscle near disputed borders. Cooperation, though, is no easy feat. There's no basin-wide water sharing treaty for the Brahmaputra, and data sharing is patchy at best. China shares flood season data with India from May 15th to October 15th for a fee of about 50,000 yuan annually. But this only started after a 2000 flood disaster on a Brahmaputra tributary killed 30 people and left 50,000 homeless in India. India wants dry season data and joint impact assessments, but China says the current setup is enough. India and Bangladesh have a joint rivers commission since 1972, but no comprehensive Brahmaputra treaty exists. A 1996 Ganges Water Treaty is in place, but the Teesta River Agreement lapsed in 1985 with no new deal in sight. Bangladesh needs dry season data from India, just as India wants it from China to prepare for droughts. One Bangladeshi expert put it bluntly, data is political. It's power bah. Then there's Bhutan and India, often called sweetheart deal. India funds Bhutan's hydropower projects and buys the electricity, over 85% of it, starting in 1961 with a major 2006 agreement aiming for 10,000 megawatts. This looks like a win-win. But Bhutan worries about environmental impacts on rivers like the Punitsangchu and questions whether the benefits are truly equal, with Indian companies and workers dominating projects. Geopolitically, India uses this to counter China's influence, subtly discouraging Bhutan from formal ties with Beijing. China, meanwhile, provides Bangladesh flood data for free, a strategic move to build influence, along with technical cooperation on issues like sedimentation. Bhutan and China, no formal water cooperation, as they lack diplomatic relations, though Bhutan worries about upstream pollution and information gaps. Despite these challenges, there's hope in what's called multi-track diplomacy. Beyond official government talks, Track 1, there's Track 2, involving academics, NGOs, and think tanks, and Track 3, people-to-people connections. The Brahmaputra sees activity on all three. A standout is the Ecosystems for Life Project, or E4L, a 2010-2014 India-Bangladesh initiative. It focused on the Hilsa fish, a cultural and economic staple whose spawning depends on the river's health. By using Hilsa as a neutral, shared interest, E4L sparked joint research and led to policy changes like fishing bans in India's West Bengal to mirror Bangladesh's. Other efforts, like the Third Pole, a multilingual platform, and the World Bank's South Asia Water Initiative, foster dialogue. The catch: civil society is vibrant in India and Bangladesh, but restricted in China and Bhutan, limiting basin-wide efforts. The biggest hurdle is trust, or rather, its absence. Historical scars like the 1962 India-China border war, territorial disputes, and information scarcity poison the well. But there's a shift happening. With China's upstream dams, India is now a middle, riparian state, feeling what it's like to be downstream from a major power. This could nudge India toward multilateral cooperation, as they now have a stake in managing upstream impacts. Experts propose a Zone of Possible Effective Cooperation, or ZOPs, focused on shared benefits, not just water. Picture this: China and Bhutan trade hydropower for India and Bangladesh's navigation routes or port access. It's about cross-sectoral trade-offs, turning a zero-sum water fight into a win-win for regional prosperity. How do we get there? Experts suggest practical steps. First, standardized data collection across countries, studying climate change, navigation, and food security. Second, pool existing data, physical, social, political, to spot gaps. Third, improve hydrological data collection, especially near borders, and make it public. Fourth, use satellite imagery and GIS mapping to bypass data restrictions. Finally, quantify the economic and social costs of non-cooperation to make the case for collaboration. Even though China didn't sign the 1997 UN Watercourses Convention, it's adopted principles like equitable use and no harm in treaties with Russia and Mongolia, offering a pathway for Brahmaputra talks. So, where does this leave us? We've journeyed down the Yarlung Tsangpo, Brahmaputra, from Tibet's mega dam to the tangled web of regional diplomacy. We've seen how geopolitics, history, and mistrust shape this vital resource, and how ecosystems like the Hilsa fish and economic incentives could drive innovative cooperation. India's new role as a middle, riparian state might just open doors for dialogue, inching the region toward that zone of possible effective cooperation. As we wrap up, here's a thought to linger on. In a world facing climate change and scarce resources, what if true strength isn't about controlling a river like the Brahmaputra? What if it's about sharing it? What if this river, winding through 4 nations, could become a pathway to peace and prosperity, not a flashpoint? That's the question, not just for the Brahmaputra, but for every contested river basin around the globe. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Stay curious, and let's keep exploring the stories that shape our world.